Hi everyone and welcome to iWizard. So today I've got another epic book haul for you, and stay tuned because later on we're going to go over some channel updates as well. Hey guys, welcome back. So I've got a big pile of books here. Some of these are books I just bought for me personally. Some of them are books that people sent me, like indie writers and publishing houses. And a couple of them are books that I purchased for my wife's birthday. Her birthday is on Valentine's Day, so double whammy for me. But I won't leave you on the edge of your seat. Why don't we start with the Baen books? I really appreciate Baen books. So for those of you who don't know, for those of you who have been living under a rock, Baen is a publishing house that specializes in sci-fi and fantasy. So with science fiction, they do a lot of space opera, action-packed hard sci-fi, military sci-fi, alternate history. With fantasy, they do a lot of traditional fantasy with cool magic systems and creatures and military fantasy. Baen's kind of old school in a way. They publish kind of pulpy, plot-driven stuff, oftentimes noir, the kind of stories you don't see as much anymore unless you go back and read like pulp era or golden age sci-fi. I've always liked Baen because they really go for entertainment. It rarely feels like they're trying to lecture their readers. It almost always feels like they're trying to entertain their readers, which, hey, that's what we want, right? Entertainment, edification, adventure, a great escape. So anyhow, Baen sent me another bag of books. I think there were 3 books in this one. And so first up, we have Sword and Planet. So I've been wanting to get my hands on this book for some time, mostly because there is a Christopher Rocchio Sun Eater story, Queen Amid Ashes, in here. And for those of you who don't know, I'm almost finished with Sun Eater Book 3, Demon in White. And as you can see here, this is edited by Christopher Rocchio as well. And so I knew I had to have this one. I'll be adding this. It's going to go up there with my Sun Eater collection. There are also stories in here by DJ Butler, Tim Akers, Jody Lynn Nye, Susan R. Matthews. You've got the Warhammer author Peter Ferrari, T.C. McCarthy. So this is good stuff. I thought I was going to have to buy this myself. I guess this means now that I'm going to have to review this book on the channel. So I really appreciate it. Thanks to Baen Books on that one. Next up is Charles E. Gannon. Nice little hardcover edition of This Broken World. Okay, so this is book 1 in the Vortex of Worlds series. Apparently there is a mystery at the center of this one that the protagonist is trying to solve. So this looks like military fantasy, epic fantasy, elements of classic fantasy, that sort of thing. So I am going to have to read this one. I've heard good things about the author, Charles E. Gannon. Okay, next up is A Call to Insurrection, another book that Baen sent me. This is David Weber, Timothy Zahn with Thomas Pope. Okay, so a lot of big names here. David Weber is a prolific military sci-fi author. Timothy Zahn, obviously best known for his Star Wars books, especially the Thrawn trilogy. This is book 4, apparently, in the Manticore Ascendant series, which is part of Weber's Honorverse, the Honor Harrington series. You guys will probably recognize that name. All right, so thank you, especially, this was probably sent to me by Sean Korsgaard. I really appreciate it, guys. I will get to these as soon as possible. Okay, now let's get to some recent acquisitions. These are books that I've purchased very recently. So first up, we have Elric of Melniboné. Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock. This is volume 1 of the Elric saga. And again, this is one I've wanted to read for a while, which is why I bought it. I don't know why, but I'm very attracted to the sword and sorcery genre, that good old-fashioned pulpy stuff. Robert E. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, Roger Zelazny, and of course, Michael Moorcock. So this series chronicles the adventures of the last king of Melnibone, the albino sorcerer Elric, and his sentient vampiric sword. Yes, you can see it right there. I said sentient vampiric sword, and his sword is called Stormbringer. And there are some beautiful pictures in here, some beautiful art in this book. Let me show you some of this. Oh, look at that. Look at that beautiful, just stunning, 60s and 70s style sword and sorcery art. Just gorgeous. Look at that. Oh, just incredible stuff here. And by the way, I'll just say one of the reasons that I haven't picked up this series and I haven't read this series yet is because up until now, there really hasn't been any really nice reprints of this in hardcover. And I'm kind of a big, print book guy. I really like having a nice copy if I'm going to commit to reading it. And now, at last, as you can see, we have a beautiful hardcover edition by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. And with this nifty little foreword by Neil Gaiman. Simon & Schuster Saga Press, as you'll know, is home of Brian Lee Durfee, infamous on BookTube. And by the way, if you're interested in this, there is apparently an audiobook version that came out with this release, and it's narrated by Samuel Rucan. If you listen to the Sun Eater series, that's Christopher Rocchio's narrator, and he's an amazing narrator. So I cannot wait to hear the Sun Eater narrator narrate this sword and sorcery classic. Okay, next up, Nobody's Fool. Nobody's Fool here, and its sequel from 23 years later, Everybody's Fool by Richard Russo. So if you don't know about Richard Russo at this point, man, I really don't know what to tell you. Richard Russo is one of the best living writers on this planet. And look at this. I love stories about diners. I love the art on this cover. You can just tell this is a, kind of, gritty, hometown blue collar diner. The best way I could describe Richard Russo to you is that he's like a modern day Dickens, and I'm not exaggerating. His prose is beautiful. He writes these long, gorgeous Dickensian sentences, and he writes with such depth and psychological penetration, and his characters are so complex, and he writes them with so much love and compassion. So basically, Richard Russo is known for writing about the lives of these small town, ordinary blue collar folks who usually live in some forgotten, kind of left behind Rust Belt town in New York or Maine or Ohio. And his books are all about these people's lives and their hopes and their dreams, their loves and their regrets. And he writes these beautiful, complex stories. His 2001 novel, Empire Falls, actually won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And that book is about this guy, Miles, who runs a diner and in this town in Maine. And the whole town is pretty much run by this really rich, crazy old lady who has basically a hold over this guy's life and a hold over the entire town. It's obviously inspired by Great Expectations. So I've read Empire Falls. I've read his book Straight Man. My wife has read Straight Man and That Old Cape Magic. So anyways, Nobody's Fool. Here is the synopsis. This is a moving, slyly funny novel that follows the unexpected operation of Grace in a blue-collar town in upstate New York. Sully, one of North Bath's unluckiest citizens, has been triumphantly doing the wrong thing for 50 years. Divorced from his own wife and carrying on half-heartedly with another man's, saddled with a bum knee and friends who make enemies redundant, Sully now has a new problem to cope with, a long-estranged son who is in imminent danger of following in his father's footsteps. Smart, uproarious humor, and a heart that embraces humanity's follies, all that stuff. So I guess the first book here was made into a movie with Paul Newman. I've never seen it, but I guess Paul Newman plays Sully, and I'm not sure how good the movie is. But all right, moving on to the next one. This is Termination Shock. This is the latest by Neil Stevenson. So this is one that I bought for my wife, Nikki, for her birthday because she studied climate, physics, hydrology, geology, the environment. She's very smart. Don't tell her I said that, but she's very smart. So when you watch her reviews on series like The Expanse, keep in mind that this girl got her PhD from Cornell in less than 4 years, which is like unheard of. Usually you're working on that doctoral dissertation for years and years and years, 5, 6, 8, 10 years sometimes. I'm not kidding. So, but anyways, enough gushing about my wife. I bought her this because I love Neal Stephenson. I've read Snow Crash. I've listened to a bunch of his talks and interviews. And so Nikki wanted to review this on the channel. And here's what it's about. Neal Stephenson's sweeping, prescient new novel transports readers to a near-future world in which the greenhouse effect has inexorably resulted in a whirling dervish of troposphere of superstorms, rising sea levels, global flooding, merciless heat waves, and virulent, deadly pandemics. And I guess there's this visionary billionaire restaurant chain magnate with a PhD who has a big idea for reversing the problem. So this is sure to be a hoot, and it's sure to be something that people can debate over, and should be really interesting to read. My wife will have to review it on this channel. All right, next up, The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I got the softcover edition because it is very difficult to get your hands on a really nice, mint condition version of the hardcover. I don't think that's in print anymore. Now, I have to make an embarrassing confession to you. Joe Abercrombie is probably the most glaring, most egregious hole in my knowledge of fantasy literature to this date. I am aware that Lord Grimdark himself is an amazing writer, Prince of Grimdark, excellent character work, compelling stories, very gritty. And I've just been so immersed in other things that I've not gotten a chance to touch a single solitary thing the man has written. I was caught in a dilemma about a year ago. I was in the mood to try out some Grimdark, and I had to choose between reading Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence and The Blade Itself, obviously, by Abercrombie. And of course, I chose Prince of Thorns, which was pretty darn good. So I'm happy I read that. But the time is nigh, I suspect, that I must finally give Joe Abercrombie a shot. And I promise you, by this summer, we'll have a review up of some Abercrombie books. Here is the plot. Logan Ninefingers, infamous barbarian, has finally run out of luck. Caught in one feud too many, he's on the verge of becoming a dead barbarian, leaving nothing behind him but bad songs, dead friends, and a lot of happy enemies. Nobleman, dashing officer, and paragon of selfishness, Captain Jezal Don Luthar has nothing more dangerous in mind than fleecing his friends at cards and dreaming of glory in the fencing circle. Okay, so then there's Inquisitor Glocta, crippled turned torturer. So this looks like a book of, just irredeemable, morally gray, gritty characters. And so I think that's Abercrombie's trademark, right? You're gonna have to find yourself rooting for, really dastardly, low-life characters and that sort of thing. And I've heard that Abercrombie makes you love them. So there's that. Okay, next up, Cushill's Dart by Jacqueline Carey. So I got this nice, perfect mint condition. Unlike the Joe Abercrombie book, I was able to find this for like $35, $40, something like that. I think this is the original first edition, brand new, mint condition. There's not even a scratch on it. Look at this gorgeous book. So again, this is by Jacqueline Carey. I first learned about this book from NPR's 2011 User's Choice Top 100 Fantasy and Sci-Fi Book List. We made a video about that. You can check that out when you get a chance. And I was so intrigued when I saw the description. I heard this book is reminiscent of the fantasies of Guy Gavriel Kay. Like if you combine the writing and world building of Guy Gavriel Kay with the sexual licentiousness of something like 50 Shades of Grey, but with a more sophisticated court intrigue feel, this is supposed to be a classic. Here is a description. Born with a scarlet mote in her left eye, Phaedra No Delaney is sold into indentured servitude as a child. When her bond is purchased by an enigmatic nobleman, she is trained in history, theology, politics, foreign languages, the arts of pleasure, and above all, the ability to observe, remember, and analyze. Exquisite courtesan, talented spy, and unlikely heroine. But when Phaedra stumbles upon a plot that threatens her homeland, Terra d'Ange, she has no choice. Betrayed into captivity in the barbarous northland of Scaldia and accompanied only by a disdainful young warrior priest, Phaedra makes a harrowing escape and even more harrowing journey to return to her people and deliver a warning of the impending invasion. And that proves only the first step in a quest that will take her to the edge of despair and beyond, etc., etc. So the description here just goes on and on, but this looks really cool. I've been told it's very sexually explicit, so if you're not into that sort of thing, you probably won't like this book, but I really don't mind it that much, as long as it's not gratuitous and it fits in with what the story is all about. Okay, next up, we have the Big Kahuna. We've arrived at the Big Kahuna, and let me load this, and that is Kingdoms of Death. Kingdoms of Death. Because our channel is doing well and growing, and because of the fact that I often publish articles and I plan to pen one actually about this series, Mr. Rocchio has been so gracious as to provide me with an ARC Digital Advance pre-publication copy of Kingdoms of Death. This is the fourth novel of the galaxy-spanning Sun Eater series, which merges the best of space opera and sword and planet epic fantasy goodness. So I will read you the synopsis here. Hadrian Marlowe is trapped. For nearly a century, he's been the guest of the Emperor, forced into the role of advisor, a prisoner of his own legend. But the war is changing. Mankind is losing. The Cielsen are spilling into human space from the fringes, picking their targets with cunning precision. The great prince Siriani Doriaika is uniting their clans, forging them into an army and threat, the likes of which mankind has never seen. And the empire stands alone. Now the emperor has no choice but to give Hadrian Marlowe, once his favorite knight, one more impossible task: journey across the galaxy to the Lothrian Commonwealth and convince them, Hadrian, to join the war. But not all is as it seems, and Hadrian's journey will take him far beyond the Empire, beyond the Commonwealth, impossibly deep behind enemy lines. So I am anticipating that that is going to be a really, really good time. Next up, we're going to go into some of our indie books. This book is called From the Ashes of a Dead World. A gentleman named Shane Grice sent this to me, and apparently it's published by Eric Flint, who is a Bane writer. Eric Flint's Ring of Fire Press. Okay, so here's the description. Pavel Marino commands one of the last remaining squadrons in the final days of an unwinnable interstellar conflict. He must now spirit his government's leadership across the stars to a foreign planet whose inhabitants were believed destroyed in an ancient war. They are far from the reaches of a ruthless foe. They can regroup their forces in order to fight again. But his ships were never designed to travel such a distance. Along the way, many difficult decisions are made so that a few can survive. And when they finally reach their anticipated refuge, they discover that the planet is already inhabited by billions of humans with industrial level technology, driving cars with internal combustion engines, flying airplanes with propellers, and waging a brutal world war. Desperate and with nowhere else to go, the weary spacefarers make contact with their primitive cousins. They must now make a fateful decision: strive for peaceful coexistence or domination. So thank you, Shane, for sending me this. This looks really interesting, and I'll get into it as soon as I can. Next up, we have a book called Recipe Arium by Kosti Gurgu. This is the Colt Award winner and the Vladimir Kolin Award winner. This doesn't have a description on the back. It doesn't have a description on the inside here either. So I'll just read you one. In the Green Kingdom, stimulation through the sense of taste has become a powerful and complex art form that rules the lives of the males, the frills, they're called. Not only does it bring pleasure, it can change a frill's destiny, even guiding him into death and beyond, if he can afford the services of the artists called recipiers. Without a recipier, a frill will live and die with no chance of an afterlife, carrying the soul of his recipiarium master within him. More Miniu comes to the Green Court in the city within the huge body of a monstrous beast, the royal Karami. His two objectives are to exact revenge on his master's enemies and to win for himself the most desired and treacherous position in the realm, master recipier of the kingdom. So this is interesting. I was reading the inside here, and apparently Costi Gurgu is one of the top Romanian science fiction writers who is finally breaking through into the English language. I guess I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he asked me if he could send me this, and I said, yeah, man, I'll try to feature it in my next book haul, right? And maybe check it out. So Costi Gurgu has written 6 books, over 80 stories. He's won multiple awards, and I guess he lives in Toronto now. So thank you, Costi Gurgu, for sending me that. It's really nice. Okay, so that's it for my book haul. Now let's get to a brief channel update. Just a very brief channel update. So January was a big month for me. I think we put out 8 videos, which is quite good for us, Nikki and I. But work got very busy in February because I had my grades due. I'm a high school teacher, if you'll remember, and course recommendations were due as well. So this has been one of my least productive reading months in a long while. I finished Ender's Game, but I don't think I'm going to review it. Here's my question, and maybe you guys can answer this question in the comments below. Does the world really need another Ender's Game review? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. And the other thing is that this is going to make a lot of people upset. I wasn't really terribly in love with the book, so that gives me pause as well. Not that every book I review has to be a book that I love, but with a book like Ender's Game that is so beloved by people my age and older, do I really want to make a review that just gets hate and gets everyone mad at me, especially since I know that a lot of my viewers really love that book. I'll be honest and I'll tell you how I feel about Ender's Game here. I give Ender's Game a 6.5 out of 10. I didn't hate it. I just have some mixed feelings. Ender's Game has a good plot. It's got some really innovative ideas, certainly innovative for the time period in which it was written. Some of the things Card does in that book are at this point like tropes of young adult fiction now. And I know how influential this book is for adults that grew up in the 80s or even in the 90s like I did. And there are definitely some good things in this book. I really liked some of the battle school scenes. I like the fact that he puts the kids through a series of tests and simulations and games. I like the focus on strategy in this book. I really liked some of the twists and surprises. I like the training montages. And look, my complaint with the book isn't even the complaint that most people have, that Ender is some Mary Sue or some Gary Stu. Look, I get it. He's a prodigy. Prodigies really do exist. He's the hero. He was chosen to be the hero. If Neo isn't a Mary Sue from The Matrix, neither is Ender. I guess what I really just didn't like was the prose. I felt like the prose was garbled and unclear at times. So much of what happens in the story, in my opinion, is kind of ludicrous and far-fetched. From the reasoning behind why the society uses children as the generals of the New Bugger War, the whole political plot line with the Warsaw Pact, and just the politics I felt were really simplistic and almost childish. The whole plot line with Locke and Demosthenes and how Peter is just able to take over Earth by writing these essays with Valentine, and none of the details are really disclosed to us. Card just kind of rushes through how these teeny boppers with no political experience are able to basically just write these glib, amateurish op-eds, and because they have these nifty ideas, the world just drops to its knees and is really convinced by their writing. Just the interactions between the children, a lot of it just didn't ring true to me. But I don't want to spend any more time panning Ender's Game. I know some of my favorite booktubers love Ender's Game, and I know Ender's Game is just really nostalgic for a lot of people. But it just wasn't my thing. It wasn't terrible, but it's not going to be one of my favorite books, and I don't want to do a whole review where I'm just railing on it. So what else can I update for you? I read Frankenstein again in February as well, because I teach that book every year to my 10th graders. Again, we probably don't need another review of such a widely read, culturally massive, ubiquitous book like Frankenstein. But I do have some good news for you. I am currently 2/3 of the way through book 3, as I mentioned, of the Sun Eater series, Demon White, and it's an absolutely marvelous, brilliant book. It's already the best book in the series, in my opinion, and it's not even close. So I can only imagine how good Kingdoms of Death is going to be. I want to save my thoughts for the review that I'll be putting out in the next couple of days, so I won't say anything more here, but let me just say, just the politics, the battle scenes, the character development, the relationships in Demon and White, the momentous plot developments that happen, the backroom, smoky backroom scheming, the sort of Game of Thrones politicking, the world building, just everything about this book, the tension, the drama, everything is just really good in Demon and White. Let me just put it this way. Storm of Swords is to Song of Ice and Fire as Demon and White is to Sun Eater. So I'm really looking forward to getting that review out before I have Christopher Rocchio on this channel. Yes, I'll be chatting with Christopher Rocchio this Friday, and I'm going to be putting that discussion up on YouTube immediately afterwards. So you'll hopefully have it by 4 p.m. or so on Friday. And lastly, I have some more good news. Not to be such a book slut right now, but I'm halfway through Down Below Station by C.J. Cherryh. And I have to tell you, and trust me, I know this is, I'm just keep heaping praise on these sci-fi books, but this is one of the best sci-fi books I've ever read. Down Below Station by Cynthia Janice Cherry, I think that's her name, it's super dense, but it is really, really good. It reads like the book equivalent of a long episodic fleet sci-fi like television show almost, right? Most of it takes place on a space station though, so that's a little bit different. And I actually can't believe that this book hasn't been made into a kind of Expanse style television show. It's super realistic, it's dense, it's dramatic, but it's dense in a good way. It's dense kind of like how Alistair Reynolds is dense, but it's a little more down to earth than Alistair Reynolds, no pun intended. Anyhow, look out for that review too, because it is coming soon, probably this weekend. All right, thanks for tuning in. That's going to be it. We're running out of time. Oh yes, one last thing. I wanted to show you that if you become a patron of my channel, you will now receive, well, you have to get the right tier, but if you become the right level of patron, there are different levels of powerful wizards. If you get the right level, just go to Patreon. I forget which one it is. You can get this iWizard mug. It's got the logo on it. It's got the iWizard name on it. And so if you're really digging my channel, if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, there are different prizes, different gifts, stickers, logo stickers, banner stickers and things like that. So feel free to become a patron. It would really help us out. It will help us make the show better, upgrade our technology. It will pay for the opportunity cost of making this show. We work really hard on it. So don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Goodreads, and again, feel free to get involved, donate on Patreon. Hit the subscribe button. Don't forget about that. Hit the subscribe button below. And until next time, happy reading. Ta-ta.